Hello everybody, it is Chimpso here. On paper, Singe may seem like a very simple champion with a very simple and rather outdated kit. In reality, however, his kit is very unique and allows you to do things that other champions can only dream of. As they say, if it's a bad idea on any other champion, it's a great idea on Singed. In order to be an effective Singe player, whether you be a lane Singed or a Proxy Singed, you're going to have to perfect a lot of techniques with him in order to take full advantage of his kit. Today I'll be going over these techniques, how to perform them, and how to use them to win games. So let's get started. Number 1. The Sky Auto Attack. Arguably the most important skill to learn when playing Singed, the Sky Auto Attack was penned by Singe Master Inverted Composer, and involves auto-attacking the target of your fling while they are in midair in order to increase your DPS. The Sky Auto Attack effectively adds your basic attack's damage onto the damage of your fling. An early game can be a difference between a kill and a salty Singed. The Sky Auto Attack is very easy to perform. My preferred method is to simply right click on the enemy as they're still on the ground while the fling animation starts. This will cause Singe to smack them in midair. Another method is to use the attack move click function, preferably bound to an easy to reach key such as the A key, and hit that key as soon as you fling your opponent. The downside to this method is that you may unintentionally hit creeps instead of your target if they're nearby, so I recommend simply mastering the right click method instead. But hey, both work, take your pick. Number 2. The Goo Flip. A relatively new Singe technique that birthed from the recent buffs to Singe this season, the Goo Flip is another essential Singe skill to master. For those who don't know, Singe is now able to fling his opponents into his Mega Adhesive, which will now stun them for 1 second. This is incredibly useful for stopping chasers dead in their tracks, catching out carries, and just stalling your enemies in general. The Goo Flip basically revolves around dropping your Mega Adhesive where your opponent will land if you flip them, then casting your fling. This is more difficult than it sounds due to the fact that Mega Adhesive has a cast time that stops Singe from moving, meaning that catching up to your target to fling them after casting means that they may get out of range to land in the goo. Casting Flip and then Mega Adhesive will not stun your opponent. The Mega Adhesive must be cast before the flip. There are no real tips I can give you for perfecting this, it simply requires fast fingers and lots of practice. But there is a way to make it easier in certain situations. Number 3. The Wall Flip. The Wall Flip is a much easier way of landing your opponents in Singe's Mega Adhesive. If you flip your opponent against a thick wall, or if you're a sufficient distance away when flipping them into a thin wall, they will be flung straight into that wall and land right in front of it. This makes it incredibly easy to land your opponents in your goo. Simply position yourself between your opponent and the wall, cast the goo underneath you, and fling them. They'll land straight in 100% of the time. The main difficulty here is getting in position fast enough to pull it off, but if you do, and you get the angles right, you will always stun your opponent. Number 4. The Void Toss. Another Singe trick penned by Inverted Composer, the Void Toss is similar to the Wall Flip, but instead of flinging your opponent against a wall, you fling them over it, removing them from fights or getting them off your ass in general. Void Toss can be performed on virtually any thin wall on Summoner's Rift, including the Baron and Dragon walls, the walls near the Grunt buff, which are great for escaping ganks if you can flip someone over it, and the walls near Tri-Brush. You need to make sure you're right up against the wall or you might end up performing a Wall Flip instead, and that's probably not what you were looking to do. This is much more difficult to perform against champions with long melee auto attack ranges such as Yasuo or Xin Zhao. Number 5. Q Mana Conservation. This is a very simple and effective trick that is most useful in the early game chases where you don't have much mana to work with. You can toggle Singe's poison on and off rapidly instead of leaving it on constantly in order to conserve mana. This will leave small puffs of smoke behind you that an enemy chasing you will still walk through, and can save you enough mana to fling them away or even drop a Mega Adhesive to slow them down in a sticky situation. Number 6. The Fling Lock. Another very simple but effective Singe technique. This involves locking your fling on the target before being in range to cast it. This will cause Singe to move towards the target and cast fling immediately within range. This has a myriad of uses. For example, you can fling lock a Warwick, and even if he ults you, you'll immediately fling him out of it, cancelling his ult. You can also use it on champions like Garen, who are running towards you with their Q, to negate their Q completely. Number 7. The Proxy. Oh yes baby, my favourite Singe technique. There are 2 types of Singe players, lane Singe players and Proxy Singe players. Lane Singed players play him much like any other top laner, starting off in lane and farming up. Lane Singed players will usually build more aggressively early and take more aggressive rune and mastery setups in order to get kills early game, since Singed can actually do a shit ton of damage early on with the right setup. Proxy Singed players are different. As opposed to going to lane level 1, they go behind the opponent's towers instead, farming 3 or 4 waves of minions before recalling / executing themselves and returning to lane to do it all over again. A Proxy Singed player itemizes differently and focuses mainly on teleport plays and farming early on. Proxy requires exceptional warding and a massive amount of practice to perfect, not to mention superior map awareness. As a Proxy Singed player myself, you can check out my channel to see it in action. Note that a Lane Singed player can still proxy, as can a lot of other top laners, but they can't do it at level 1. Number 8. 4 waves. 4 waves is a proxy Singed technique that involves proxying 4 waves during your initial level 1 proxy as opposed to 3. Normally you would take 3 waves, 2 normal and 1 cannon creep wave, then recall / execute to return to base. The reason for this is due to the fact that the enemy jungler will likely be topside by that time and will be looking to smack you down. Going for 4 waves is greedy and always risky, but can pay off big time if you pull it off. Make sure you're warded up and preferably have vision of the enemy jungler doing something else on the map. And always execute yourself to tower after 4 waves. Recalling is far too risky. Number 9. The double proxy. Perhaps the most badass Singed technique there is. A double proxy is when a Proxy Singed player will waltz straight into the enemy's base, dance in front of their nexus, and farm 2 waves of minions at a time as they spawn. This can allow you to beat a massive item lead over your opponent by siphoning CS from your mid laner. Your mid laner doesn't like that? Fuck him. A double proxy allows you to pressure both mid and top lane at the same time, as well as royally piss off the enemy jungler. Before you go in for a double proxy, you should preferably have vision of all enemies on the map, especially the jungler. At the very least, you should have a rough idea where the jungler is. If any of the enemy's laners are not clearly visible in their lanes, do not go in for a double proxy. Also, take note of enemy death timers and act accordingly. You don't want an enemy spawning on you and ruining your fun. When passing the enemy's inhibitor turrets, be sure to get out of their range as soon as possible. Then get into position in front of, but just out of range of, the enemy nexus turrets. Start channeling a recall but cancel it at the last second. This might throw off the enemy jungler if they're coming to get you. When the next wave spawns, aggro all the creeps in the top and mid waves by running back and forth between them as they leave the nexus, and poison them all to death. This is considerably harder to do against a cannon creep wave, as those 2 cannons will chunk you down pretty hard and are harder to take out. I recommend not going in for a double proxy until you have your ult, and don't be afraid to pop set ult to farm those 2 waves if you're low. It's worth it. If an enemy comes, execute to the towers pronto, and be sure to watch out for any enemy flashes. Flash ignites is particularly rage-inducing to die from, trust me. If you get hit and can't execute yourself, try to escape out through the bot lane inhibitor turret and book it through the enemy jungle. Though if escape is impossible, try your hardest to give as little gold as you can and waste as much time. You can do this by killing yourself before another enemy can tag you for an assist, or try dying to the support if you can. It is possible, but not recommended, to farm 2 sets of minions instead of 1, netting you a total of 4 whole waves of minions. But only stay for a second set of waves if you can still see all the enemies on your map and they're not making any move to come stop you. Look out for recalls especially. If you want to, you can proxy mid and bot lane instead of mid and top lane. I've only done this a few times in my Singe life, but if your bot lane is getting stomped, it'll allow them to recall without their tower being pressured. Make sure you let them know what you're doing though, so they can take full advantage of it. Number 10. The BM. Ha, dickheads! Self-explanatory. Number 11. Objective zoning. Holy shit, is this an important skill to learn. Not just for Singe, but for all tanks. If you do very little damage to Baron or Dragon, don't do it. Instead, zone the enemy away while your team does it instead. If you have sight of the enemy jungler while your team's doing an objective, make a beeline for them and fuck with them in any way possible. Try and flip them into your goo, slow them with your Rylai's poison. Do everything you can to keep the enemy away from the objective. The only time you should actually be helping with Dragon or Baron as Singed is when the enemy is either too far away to stop you and you need to rush it down, or they're all dead. If that's not the case, pop ult and ghost and stall the enemy jungler as much as you possibly can, even if it costs you your life. If you're strong enough, You can also teleport onto a ward near Baron or Dragon while the enemy team is doing it, and throw them off the objective, stalling them until a team gets there. Objective zoning on Singe has won me more games than I can count. Make sure to let your team know in chat that you'll zone the enemy while they get the objective, otherwise they might try to follow you thinking you're trying to fight. You can check out virtually any game commentary on my channel to see this in action. Make sure you remember this next time your team is going for a risky Dragon or Baron. Thank you everybody for checking out the first episode of my Singe guide here. I've decided instead of making one huge guide that would take forever and would probably be very long, I'm going to split it up into different parts. So this will be part 1, just the general tips and tricks for playing Singed. But eventually we'll get onto the parts where we go over all his abilities and then his builds and ways to play him. But for now we're just going to start pretty basic. I'm really looking forward to this, but it's not going to be something I'm going to be working on really hard right now. I'll still be doing my regular videos in the process, and I'll release these when I have enough time to do them. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be nice to finally put together the guide I've been promising for so long. I'm sorry about the wait, guys. I'm just a lazy guy. But yeah, if you like this, share it around. This is a video I'm pretty proud of, so had to write out this giant-ass script. But whatever, like, if you like it, share it around. I appreciate it. But, you know, if you don't, whatever, that's fine. Give it a dislike then, if that's your forte. But yeah, I'll see you all next time, hopefully with some more Singe content, but you never know, maybe we'll do another champion. But apart from that, I'll catch you all later. Peace out.